Hey everybody, it's Tony George and Griffin Murphy from DocSports.com, and we are on this week's edition of the Gridiron Six-Pack, 6 Plays College and Pro. Last 2 weeks, 3-3 on the shows. Last week we mentioned that we were 4-2, but I was stand corrected. 3-3, as we always want to be transparent. And there are some crucial games in college football this week, Griffin. They released the college football playoff top 12 last night, which is fodder for the mainstream media. The only thing I care about is who's going to cover the spread. I don't give a rat's ass who's going to win. No, and I don't know who's going to. I don't know who's going to win in that Nebraska-Wisconsin game on Saturday, but I'm going to go up to Lincoln and go, Griff. And my Huskers laying 2.5 points in that game against Wisconsin. That's one of those head scratchers. Do I just bet the unconventional choice to think Nebraska can all of a sudden win a big game?
I mean, Tony, you'd be a sinner if you didn't. You have to go to the game and wager on your team if you don't. I mean, the line's weird. The whole system itself is weird when it comes to you're playing the Badgers and you're laying points. I get it, you're at home, but dude, you'd be sinning if not. If I go to a Bears game, you best believe I'm putting 2-3 dimes on that game, even if I know they're going to get annihilated. I'm there for the motion, the fun. Let's get some energy going. That's where I'm at, Tony. So you better be with me on this one. I'll tail it with you, matter of fact.
I'm going to have some energy going. Shout out to our buddy over at Odds Breakers, Kiev O'Brien, a mutual friend of ours. He is a huge Wisconsin Badger fan. And so I've been getting pummeled with derogatory text messages about my Huskers this week. And I had to obviously compare. I said I had to send him a picture of me standing in front of the trophy case in the Nebraska trophy room with 5 national title trophies. And I said, could you show me yours? All of a sudden, it's like crickets. So there you go. Nonetheless, speaking of Big Ten, there are some huge games this week in the Big Ten. We're not going to talk about it, but Ohio State is a 13.5-point favorite at home against Indiana. And this is a piece of the puzzle, I would say, for top 4 in college football in terms of the playoff brackets. If you want to go mainstream and talk about that, I don't. But another piece of the puzzle and a team that's in the mix is the Penn State Nittany Lions. And they travel up to Minneapolis, Minnesota, where PJ Fleck is just in there rowing that boat, just slow and steady, ready to screw up the Nittany Lions' plans. And a Minnesota Golden Gopher team, I might add, that is 7-2-1 against the spread this year, and currently down from 12 to 11.5 as of Wednesday when we tape this show, total 45. Penn State the last couple of weeks hung 35 on Washington, 49 on Purdue. I guess the best team that I've seen that Minnesota has played is Iowa, and that's a team they lost 31-14 against, Griff. And, of course, last week, a 7-point loss to Greg Schiano and the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Interesting game here. I think it's going to be a tough game for Penn State on the road this late in conference season because the noose is getting tight now that we're getting down to the end of the season. And Franklin wants another shot at a top 5 team where he can't beat grandma at Costco pushing the shopping cart. So what's going to happen here?
Yeah, Tony. I mean, over the course of the season, we've learned over the course of a few decades, I would say, we've learned a few things over Penn State. One thing in particular, I'm going to start off with Drew Aller's performance. Drew Aller and James Franklin have 2 things in common. Iowa State owns both of them, and they simply can't win the big game. This should be a punch down your throat type of matchup against Minnesota. When you've got Singleton and Allen as your 1-2 running backs with Penn State, these are arguably the best 2 running back duo in all of college football. Allard, he should have no issues throwing the ball against this Minnesota secondary, but that shouldn't be the case in this game. Singleton and Allard are going to be the workload, smash mouth football. I expect these two to run the ball up the gut, play in, play out. They're big, explosive, elusive backs, and Minnesota's defense is 57th in the nation when it comes to defending the rush. Where does that take us, Tony? Clock management. Drew Allard is really only going to be key in this matchup on those 2nd and 10s and those 3rd and 7s. Other than that, it's going to be a lot of run game in my eyes. What do we know about this Minnesota offense? Well, they put 21 points up against UCLA's defense. They put 25 points up against an overrated Illinois club. And they just scored 19 points in a loss against the Rutgers in their most recent matchup. This is a clock management game, Tony. Smash mouth football. Penn State currently holding teams to just 13.5 points per game on the defensive side. Minnesota, we already know they struggle on that offensive side every single season. It's always an issue. They are tight on the defensive front. So where does that bring me once again? Clock management. I'm not laying the points here with Penn State, even though I believe they're going to take this one outright. But I do love the under 45.5 points in this one, Tony. So my play in this matchup is going to be drilling that under at 45.5. Tony?
So when you play under, so they're in the mid 40 range, do you have any thought in terms of a side play when we're talking about this many points? Does that bring big points into play? Can Minnesota put up 10 points in this ball game?
That's exactly where I'm at with it, Tony. So I believe because of the current total sitting at 45.5 and we have an 11.5 point spread, I believe that Minnesota is going to score points. And as you mentioned prior to getting into this, they're 7-2 against the spread, and this is a double-digit number. So once again, that's something that I don't want anything to do with. I don't want to mess with it. Do I believe Minnesota is going to be able to score points against this? I'm not going to call them an overrated defense, but they're just not the same defense that they were last season, and that is forsaken. That is obvious. So with that being said, Tony, sticking to my guns, I'm drilling the under. I do believe, though, that Minnesota will put up maybe 14 points in this game, and Penn State obviously takes this game outright. Shifting gears now, we got a good one here. Ole Miss laying 10.5 points at Florida. We've got a total sitting at 55.5. DJ Lagway will get the start in this one for Florida. Lagway, he's hitting 58% of his passes this season in 4 starts and 9 games played. He's already got 5 interceptions on the season. Florida's coming off a huge win last week at home over LSU, but now they got to deal with the Rebels. Florida playing really good football right now, especially in Gainesville with a record of 4-2. Tony, how is this defense going to stop Jackson Dart and this Ole Miss offense that once again is on another 3-game winning streak and just completely lit up Georgia at home, then followed that game up with a bye week? Tony, how do you see this one playing out?
Well, I think the bye week helps because Florida's coming off such a huge game against LSU. But between me and you and a fence post just taking a piss, drinking a beer, is LSU really that good? I mean, seriously, are they that good? Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly doesn't have that team. He doesn't have control of that team. He's just, I mean, you see his demeanor on the sideline towards the players, and not playing since November 9th and getting healthy is a huge, huge advantage for Ole Miss. And bear in mind, if you take a look at Florida, they played in 3 big games this year. And I would consider LSU a big game. So let's say they played in 4 big games. They're 1-3 against the really big boys who we know are good. Georgia got beat by 14, you know. And by the way, on November 9th, the same team that Florida lost to by 14, Ole Miss spanked Georgia 28-10, you know, to build up that confidence. Then you take a look at Texas when Florida played them, 49-17, wasn't even a game. Ole Miss, there's 2 things that concern me slightly. I can't get over that game they played against Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a bad football team, and they were, that game was in doubt till mid fourth quarter, and that was in their house. And Lane Kiffin looked like a deer caught in the headlights during that game. That being said, the other part of it is Kiffin, when he gets in big games, they don't do that well. He doesn't coach that well. I'm not saying he's a Franklin from Penn State, but he's trying to give him a run for his money. You know, same thing with Ryan Day at Ohio State. When they get in the spotlight, when they get their back up against the wall, when it's time to come out and get the job done, they don't get the job done. But as you mentioned, who's got the better quarterback in this game? Who's got the better team? Who's got the better defense? And this has SEC title implications, possibly. Ole Miss, if they lose this game, they're out of the playoffs. I'm going to lay the 10, and I think they go in there and they win this game by 2 touchdowns against Florida in the Swamp. That LSU game took a lot out of Florida last week, and I think Ole Miss shows up with 2 weeks of prep. I think Kiffin, because he's got the horses here, Griff, that he can win this thing by double digits. Yeah. And he's had 2 weeks to prep. Now, if he can't get over on Florida in this game, I think we got to throw him out with the bathwater. I don't know. I'm not a huge Lane Kiffin fan, but he does have the horses, and I think they can get it done here against a tired Florida team with probably one of the better throwing quarterbacks in college football with everything on the line. We're going to switch gears over to the ACC. And Louisville, surprisingly in my mind, is laying 8 points at Pittsburgh. But Pittsburgh is warranting getting 8 points laid against them at home because they've dropped 3 in a row to Clemson, Virginia, and SMU. You know, and let's not forget about that game against Miami, which you were all over. If you don't recall. That took a lot out of them. SMU has beaten both these teams. But Pittsburgh started out unbeaten. They were cracking in the top 20 for the first time in forever. And then they just fell from grace. And, of course, Louisville, out of nowhere then, loses to Stanford. Stanford, of all, out there where the hippies hang out on campus, smoking weed, talking about peace and love. Yep. So I don't know what's going on. This game here, total 57.5, and the Cards on the road. Boy, I'll tell you what, I'm glad you picked this one. Tell me what you think.
Tony, I got to say, man, Louisville, they have a consistent pattern, and they've proven it all season long. They always seem to play at the level of talent pool against the teams they are facing. I mean, it's been repetitive all season long. They have nearly kept every single game this season within 1 to 2 possessions, dating all the way back to week 2. Here's the issue for Pitt in this game. First off, as you mentioned, they opened up the season 7-0, dropped 3 straight games. SMU really exposed them, I mean, on all levels of football. Then you drop to Virginia, then you drop to Clemson. The ACC, we've learned, this is a very, very tough conference this season, and they have some very top caliber teams. And we're going to start seeing the separation from the men and the boys as we are now towards the end of the season. Louisville, they've got a solid pass game with Matt Shue, but their pure dominance comes in the run game with Isaac Brown. This kid is fast. He's elusive. Yep. He's as bouncy as it gets. And when we're talking about college football running backs, this guy's one of the top in the nation. The issue for Louisville here is Pitt absolutely dominates against the rush. They apply heavy pressure, and they have a pair of some really talented linebackers. And that should sustain the run game with Brown and really force the ball in Matt Shue's hands for airing the ball out. Pitt has proven one thing. They can score on anybody, and Louisville's defense is not all that special. Tony, in this matchup, I like Pitt Louisville showing too much consistency in close games, and they're due. And Pittsburgh now 3-game losing streak. They're due for an explosive breakout, especially when you're in an ACC war zone matchup. So Tony, in this matchup, I'm going to be taking Pitt here +8 at home. Give me the points. This line doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but at the same time, it does. It correlates, it coincides, and as mentioned, I love the pattern that Louisville's playing, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in that consistency. And if you're going to give me over a touchdown, 8 points here, I can't just fade it. I'm taking the 8 points with Pitt in this one. Tony?
We talked about this. You and I did that week. You had a huge play on Miami against them. And I was on board with you. I tailed you on that one. I actually had a 4-unit play. You had a 7 or an 8-unit play on Miami. I can't remember what it was. It was a big play. And I called you and I said, with that defense that Louisville has, they can't be laying more than 6 points against anybody all year. We talked about that, if you don't recall. Yeah. And I'll tell you, Pittsburgh's got a great 1-2 punch at running back. And their quarterback ain't bad either. The kid can play, and I honestly think between the two head coaches, Pitt's head coach is better. I think getting over a touchdown there is great value.
Yeah, Tony, I couldn't agree more with you, especially Brom. I don't love the guy, but at the same time, I'm going to sustain my play here. Love Pitt, take the 8 points, maybe beat him by a point. That's my pick / lean, but that's my pick on the show. But shifting gears now, and this is one that I'm really excited to talk about, and we're gonna put Tony to a little battle test here. I'm gonna have some fun with you. Before I do so, I do want to jump into this game. Oh, it's gonna be fun, Tony. There we go. So we've got Denver. They're laying 10 or 5.5 points, rolling into Las Vegas to play the Raiders. We got a total sitting at 41. Vegas, they come into this game on a 6-game losing streak. Denver, they just absolutely lit up Atlanta, holding them to 0 touchdowns and just 2 field goals. Bo Nix, proving the capabilities of an NFL quarterback in this Denver defense, no joke. So I question myself, why is the line sitting at 5.5? Now, Tony, before I pass the baton off to you, I got to ask you a simple question. And this is for the people. This is the test. So you got to dig deep here for this one, Tony, because this is just a one-name answer. We are all aware here, everybody. Tony George, he is a legend when it comes to winning sports selections. He is dominant, and he's done it year in, year out for 32 plus years. But there's one thing that Tony just can't seem to get his grasp on. And I'm going to ask you this right now, Tony. Are the Las Vegas Raiders led by Gordon Minshew or Gardner Minshew?
Gardner.
You got it. All right, man. I have been waiting to ask you this damn question for 5 weeks since I've been reading comment after comment after comment, and you never listen to those comments, man. It's Gardner Minshew, not Gordon. I have been waiting, sitting on this. This was for my fun. I hope you guys got a little bit out of it. Tony got that one right, so we'll give him the A+ on that one. Tony, the baton is yours. How do you see this one playing out?
Gardner Minshew, is going to get his freaking ass kicked this weekend. That's what's going to happen in this game. Okay, let me be clear. 32 years, blah, blah, blah. I know a good football. We talked about this on the free plays this week. I had a free play on DocSports.com. Get to or you're on the YouTube channel. There's going to be a ton of free plays from Griff, myself, all the handicappers that contribute their free play prowess on the YouTube page. But last week, and then on the NFL opening line report I did this week, we had a discussion about this. And on the Monday Night Football free play I gave you on the Houston Texans for free. Okay. After I gave you the Colts on Sunday for free. I said, I've said it all year long. And I'm saying it now. Speaking since Griff alluded to the 32 years of experience, the old man with the gray hair, the Master Yoda bringing in Skywalker to take over my job, training my replacement. Nonetheless, we told you all year long that the New York Jets sucked. All year long. Told you in the preseason, they suck. What are they
Mhm.
doing laying 4 points to anybody who's a 4-win team that was injury riddled, and since then they've been ripping off wins. Watch the Colts give the Lions a game this week, by the way, folks. FYI, remember where you heard it first. Okay, but what else we talked about on, let's take a look at the bad teams last week. The Raiders, ass handed to them. Jacksonville, ass handed to them. Tennessee, ass handed to them. Overrated teams we've talked about. 49ers, beat. Jets, beat. Okay? All this stuff, if you've been paying attention all year long, has been on this show. The Las Vegas Raiders stink. They're no good. They got a dead man walking head coach. They don't have any quarterback play. Whatever semblance of an offense they have is going to get suffocated by the Denver defense, which is not talked about enough and is what has kept them in games all year long, while Master Yoda, Sean Payton, brings up young Skywalker, Bo Nix. What's Bo Nix done in his last 4 games? Now that he's got some seasoning around him, 9 touchdown passes, 1 pick, and a 114 QBR rating. That's better than Mahomes. That's better than almost anybody in the NFL over the last 4 weeks. Up from 4 through 5 to 5.5. I don't give a rat's ass. Give me the Broncos to win by at least a touchdown on Sunday. Switching gears, let's go to the team last week that Griff Murphy took on this show, the Miami Dolphins, laying a very similar number to the New England Patriots, who they're not having the same success rate with their rookie quarterback as what the Denver Broncos are. But he also didn't start the season. You're seeing some shades with May that he could be an NFL quarterback. The problem is he didn't have any pieces around him. Yeah. You know, now they did make a valiant comeback last week against the Rams after the Rams were throttling them and then let their foot off the throttle, which is a big no-no in the NFL. But nonetheless, Miami has owned these guys. 8-0 straight up against them, 8-0 against the spread against them the last 8 games. I believe every start that Tua has had, he has covered the spread. As a matter of fact, in those 8 straight covers, they are covering by 8.4 points per game. Miami, they've gotten healthy against the Rams, who are average, and the Raiders, who are suck. So is Miami really resurging here, Griffin? Can they cover a 7 against the team? That's the question in this game.
Tony, yes, absolutely. I'm saying it right now. Miami is back. Tua is healthy, and he's back in that NFL full tempo. All key players are being utilized. The pass game is back on point with Hill and Waddle. The offense is once again one of the most explosive offenses in football. 2 weeks ago, they took down the Rams on Monday Night Football, and that was the eye test for the remainder of this season. I wanted to see that game and see the capabilities because we know the Rams and the Dolphins are those 2 teams with those lethal offensive explosive players, and we got to see a taste of that in that Monday night victory. This game was followed up by, as you mentioned, a blowout victory at home against the Raiders. New England, they suck. I don't care what anybody says. Drake May still grooming. He is, in fact, coming off one of his best games of the season last week against the Rams, but the Rams have a terrible defense, so I'm not impressed with New England on either side of the ball right now. Other than seeing a young rookie quarterback take step forwards in the NFL, I am not on board with this New England Patriots team right now. You can look at New England from a metric standpoint, and they're nearly bottom of the half of the barrel when it comes to all spectrums on the defensive side. And yet their numbers still, in my eyes, Tony, aren't accurate. As a matter of fact, they should be worse. New England's offense has turned the ball over all season long, and that's left New England's defense spending the majority of the time on the field, which stacks on credibility for those metrics. New England's secondary is also allowing over 215 yards in the air a game against. I see no signs of them shutting down this explosive Miami offense. And Miami, on top of that, has a very lethal defense at times, especially against garbage offenses. So in this matchup, Tony, I'll be laying the points once again with the Miami Dolphins here. That is my play. And finally, shifting gears, coming to our Tony teaser of the week. Let's hit him.
Yeah, and don't forget, folks, there's a link right above us there, docsports.com/free60. Be sure and get over to Docs and take advantage of a free $60 for any new member. Comes with absolutely no hassles and no strings, and it comes with a profit guarantee. It's going to be a good weekend to get it. Now, let's get to this teaser, and the theme this week is 3 key numbers. That's it. 3 key numbers. Now, for you old school guys that have been following me for years and that wager, and you're in your 40s and your late 30s up to your 70s or 80s, you've realized at some point in time during your betting experiences, especially in the NFL, that you're betting into numbers and you're not betting into games. For you young cats, that's something you need to tattoo to your girlfriend's butt. I'm betting into numbers. I'm not betting into games. We're talking about key numbers, which are fall numbers, 3, 6, 7, 10. That means numbers games are likely to land on and not numbers that you want to be sitting on. For instance, Kansas City last week suffered their first loss. I'm glad they lost. They needed to lose because we're going to see Buffalo again, and I'm a Chiefs fan, but we're going to see Buffalo again. And I would rather play Buffalo at Arrowhead with revenge versus Buffalo having revenge. That's a good thing to recenter yourself, reboot, unplug the router and plug it back in so the internet works better. Kansas City needed a reboot and a replug. Good for them. They're going to kick the piss out of Carolina. But when you tease that down from 11, you go through 10. You go through 7, and you go through 6, and you land on -5. You're through 3 key numbers. Kansas City, San Francisco on the road at Green Bay. Griff, I don't know about you, but this is a do-or-die game for the 49ers this weekend. If they lose this game, it's over. It's over.
Yeah.
Any talk of them with an outside chance of even thinking about winning their division goes through Green Bay. Any chance of them getting in the postseason at all, any chance, they have to win this game. And again, we've said all year long, they've been beat up and injury riddled all year long. They got McCaffrey back. It hadn't helped. Okay? You just lost to Seattle, a team that you dominated 3 weeks ago on Monday Night Football. Green Bay did not look all that hot against Griff, a below-average Bears team. They won on a miracle, no doubt about it. They got outplayed in that game. They're laying 2.5 here. But San Francisco, through 3, through 6, through 7, up to 8.5 on a 2-team 6-point teaser. 3 key numbers with them, key numbers with Kansas City. That's 6 key numbers. That's called a value bet teaser. KC, San Fran. Take it on Sunday. DocSports.com is where you need to be. And folks, a big announcement here. Huge announcement. Griff Murphy and I, you want to see us in the raw? You want to see us candid? You want to see us unfiltered? You want to hear us talk about college basketball? Friday morning, 10:30 Central AM, Friday morning, ladies and gentlemen, on my StreamYard podcast, Doc Sports Vegas Beat. You can find it on Twitter and Facebook Live, and it's archived there at T George Sports or Tony George Sports on Facebook. Everybody's got Facebook. You got to check up on your neighbors. You got to, you got to see what everybody, like my wife, I know everybody's drama outside of the business world because my wife is scrolling through that 24/7. Griff's seen it in person himself. Nonetheless, we're going to do a 20, 30-minute show on Friday morning about some do's and don'ts about college basketball that is here now. Maybe give a couple of outlooks over the weekend real quick. And we're just going to shoot the breeze in a very raw and candid format. So be sure and tune in. Just follow. And it'll be on Griff's Twitter as well at G Murphy Wins. At T George Sports Friday morning. All right. This weekend, I'm going to have a top play in college football on a 3-pack. It's going to be a 6-unit play. Last week, I told you on the show, I had one pick and one pick only in the NFL on Sunday. It was the Pittsburgh Steelers. What does Baltimore do in laying points at Pittsburgh? Tomlin has owned them. Easy money. And I threw in a teaser, which I lost, a small unit teaser, because Kansas City couldn't cover the 8.5. They should have. But nonetheless, I'm probably going to do the same thing again this Sunday, or maybe just have 1 7-unit play. And this looks like it could be a total. I'm going to keep it low volume and just hit them for big units. Why spread it around with 5 or 6 games and sweat them all out, end up with +3 units or -3 units, because the NFL is very chalky and very dangerous this weekend, Griffin? Or why just not circle one, put it on the radar screen, uncork the Tomahawk cruise missile, and surgically strike the books? That's the plan. What do you got going on?
Yeah, Tony. So as mentioned, obviously I've had my 8-unit college football play of the year. That was dated back to Miami against Louisville, ended up capturing that victory. So Saturday, as mentioned last week, I only put out 2 selections. I had a top play on Saturday, a 6-unit best bet, and a top play on Sunday, a 7-unit best bet. Unfortunately, I lost my 6-unit best bet on a 58-second touchdown, 20-yard touchdown pass in the corner of the end zone. Beat down, whatever, let that go, shifted on to Sunday, ended up bearing down once again, went back to my 8-unit loser from 2 weeks ago, drilled that play, should have won the game outright, took the +5 points. That line made absolutely no sense whatsoever. So anybody who read my breakdown has full understanding of exactly what I saw in that matchup. So going into this week, Tony, I'm going to have 2 plays on Saturday, including my college football 8-unit play of the year. That play will be kicking off at noon Eastern time, early games, ladies and gentlemen. So that will be my 8-unit play. I will also have a 3-unit play later on that evening. And then heading over to the NFL. As mentioned, I had 1 play on Sunday, 1 play across the entire NFL slate last week, captured that victory. So this weekend, we're going to play a little bit lower volume, looking at a 6-unit play, have circled up. It's either a 5 or a 6. And I'm going to have a 3-pack on deck on NFL Sunday. So 3 plays on Sunday, lower volume, capturing that, keeping our risk management secured, and then unloading the tank on Saturday with 2 plays and my 8-unit game of the year, which kicks off at noon, Tony.
That's right, folks. Get over to DocSports.com. Griff, myself, 10 other handicappers. You've got a prop service over there. You've got consensus services along with these other cappers. Great information. And, of course, again, I hate to say this, but it's true. The 2 best-looking cappers are right here. We're handsome son of a bitches. Come on. Come on. That's just how it is. So be sure and get over there.
I'm reading it in the comments, man. I'm reading it in the comments. I saw one today, Tony. I said, what a stud. It was on your comment. What a stud. Boy. Look at this guy.
Yeah.
Back in his 20s.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm gonna try and get rid of some of this gray hair with a little one of that wash me just for men stuff because I want to be looking pretty when I go back to the Alumni Association this weekend up in Lincoln, Nebraska for the Nebraska-Wisconsin game. You're right. I can only put a little bit of pizza money on my Huskers. I got to do it. I
You
got to
have to.
do it. I got side bets all over the place on this thing. Dana Holgerson, 2 weeks under his belt now as the offensive coordinator for the Huskers. The ex-Houston, West Virginia head coach. Thought he called a good game last week against USC. They were right in it till the end. But we did get a pick six score. So Husker offense only put up 13. And maybe you got to wonder how much whiskey's got left in the tank after really having an outside shot of beating the number one team in the country last week in Oregon. They really gave them a ball game. So what's the dejection level as you travel to Nebraska? Because if Nebraska doesn't beat Wisconsin or Iowa the week after, we ain't going to no bowl again. Something's got to happen. It's time for a Badger beatdown. That's what time it is, gosh dang it. Come on. All right. You can find Griffin and I Friday morning over there on the StreamYard podcast. Check our free plays on Thursday and Friday morning when we're doing our updates for our free plays. We'll be sure and remind you of that and where you can find it on our Twitter accounts. Get over to Docs, get some winners. Christmas is right around the corner, Griff. It's time to start stuffing the stockings with some cash. Let's get going. Thanks for tuning in.